thank you once again for another opportunity to learn with you. So today in this video we are going to look at ethical frameworks for analysis of virtual reality scenarios. So there are a couple of things that we need to set straight from here. Remember, we started this topic a few weeks ago, and we are looking at ethics generally in virtual reality, considering how virtual reality is slowly and steadily shaping the way we live, the way we interact with people, the way we learn, and the way we do so many things. So we need to look at what are the ethical ideals and ethical values that are there to be protected and that must be looked into by the developers, the people who are interested in virtual reality, and the society at large. Because at the end of the day, these virtual reality systems and computer generated environments that we are talking about are there to be consumed by users, and therefore there are certain parameters that must be set straight, and there are those parameters that we have to adhere to so that we are able to derive the most from virtual reality. So let me take you through the understanding of the way the ethics and the frameworks that are normally used to analyze virtual reality scenarios. So there are a couple of definitions we need to make, so that when we embark on this journey, we are able to resonate with the idea and we are able to understand the concept and what we are talking about today. So we are looking at ethical frameworks that are used to analyze virtual reality scenario. So we need to know what is ethical framework. Now, ethical framework is also known as the ethical theory or moral frame. So this is basically a structured set of rules, principles, and guidelines that provide a systematic approach to determine what is morally right or wrong. So the framework we are talking about, or the ethical framework we are talking about, is a structured set of rules which systematically provides a means with which we are able to determine what is wrong or right when we are dealing with virtual reality system. Another thing that we need to define when it comes to what we are talking about or virtual reality is what we call virtual reality scenario. Remember, I stated a while ago that virtual reality is a computer generated environment that is not real, but it is a virtual kind of environment where we interact with 3D objects within the space we are in. So virtual reality scenario is digital simulated environment designed to immerse the user in a computer generated 3D environment. Now that is what we call virtual reality scenario. Now, for us to get to understand how these frameworks are used in coming up with virtual reality system, or basically to understand the ethical frameworks that are normally used to determine or to analyze the virtual reality scenarios, we need to know a few things. For us to understand the frameworks and how they are used in analyzing virtual reality, there are things we need to know, like we need to understand the virtual reality ethics, and some of these ethics ethical issues or ethics that we are referring to, I alluded to them in my previous video, so you can watch it and get to understand what they mean and what they are. But I'm going to just mention a few of them. One of them is data collection and privacy. That is very important. So that is part of the ethics that are there to govern virtual reality systems and uses across board. We also need to recognize that when it comes to understanding virtual reality ethics, we also need to remember user well-being and safety. So the person who is using the virtual reality system must feel safe and must actually have safety and be safe when using these devices. And also, we also need to consider or remember one of the ethical issue or ethical element that must be factored in when analyzing virtual reality scenario is the content and experience design. And also, with that in mind, we also need to recall digital addiction and responsibility. So those are some of the few ethical issues that must be understood in order to understand how these frameworks are used to analyze virtual reality scenarios. There is also a framework known as utilitarianization. This is a framework that suggests that we need to maximize happiness and minimize suffering. So we must consider how virtual reality experiences impact the well-being of the user, because the well-being of the user is very important, because our well-being is paramount at the end of the day. If you are living using these devices, one of the things that must be considered, or one of the things that virtual reality creators must consider, is your safety and also the experience that you are able to derive from this. So is this experience giving you some sort of satisfaction, or is it bringing some sort of suffering which should not be there in the first place? So we need to look at that. There is also another framework known as deontology. Now, this framework basically emphasizes the importance of following moral rules and duties. So the developers of virtual reality system must should use ethical guidelines that are there to respect users' autonomy and rights, not to undermine or to infringe on their rights. So that is another framework that is normally used to analyze virtual realities scenario. We also have what we call virtue ethics. So this focuses on developing moral character. We also need to encourage developers to basically foster virtuous experiences that promote personal growth, not exploitation or harm. So we need to be encouraged that these systems that we are using, or virtual reality that system that we are using, must promote our personal growth and not to bring or infringe on some of our rights. So it is important to know that another element that, or another framework that is used in analyzing virtual reality scenarios is what we call privacy and virtual reality. So users of this system must have control over their personal data and experiences. So ethical guidelines should address data collection, storage, sharing, protection, and user privacy. So those are very important tenets that must be factored in when any virtual reality system is delivered to the users outside there. So these are some of the issues that are normally looked into when virtual reality system is being developed or created. So it is important to understand that. And also another framework that is very important and subtle to talk about or to mention is what we call inclusivity and accessibility. Now, virtual reality should be inclusive and accessible to all, regardless of their faith, regardless of their creed, regardless of their skin color, religion, and such. So, virtual reality scenarios should not discriminate based on race, religion, or gender. So, it is something that is of importance not only to you as a person but also to the society, because if your neighbor or somebody you know or close to is traumatized because of the scenario or the environment that has been created using virtual reality, then virtual reality can become a problem to the society. But as it is stand today, we've seen so many companies trying to create systems that are very sensitive. So we need to have this in mind. And if you encounter any virtual reality device or system that generate environments that violate some of these rights or bring issues like discrimination or such, then such companies or such devices must be reported, and basically the rule of law needs to take its course, or there should be a discussion between you and the people who created virtual reality system that you're using, so that you are able to rectify that. Now we are talking of psychological impact framework. Consider the psychological impact of virtual reality scenarios, because this psychological impact is very important in the sense that it interfere with most of our logical and our emotional well-being. So it is imperative that we take psychological impact very cautiously. We look at it cautiously going forward, and even look at ethical evaluations that needs to be done in order to check whether the virtual reality experiences that are being created can they cause addiction? Are they there to harm the users, or can they cause desensitization? So we need to have it in mind that psychological impact also play a critical role when it comes to analyzing virtual reality scenarios. We also have the whole framework of accountability, that those who have made it their goal to create and to deliver virtual reality systems for us should be able to be accountable in case of anything. So they should be held responsible for ethical implication of their virtual reality creation. So we should hold them responsible for whatever they've created and they've delivered to us. If it is not functioning as it should be, then that is an issue. The whole agenda of stakeholders being involved. So people, consumers who are using virtual reality are usually involved in coming up with this scenario. So these are some of the issues that are normally considered, or the framework that are normally used to come up with a virtual reality scenario.